کاوش مدیا.
This idea that in the last resort, Israel would always be able to depend on the United States was born some 50 years ago. It was born when the United States started supplying Israel with cutting-edge military platforms at the end of the War of Attrition in 1970. And the deal that was wrought at the time, and that has been maintained at least rhetorically ever since, is that the United States will continue to supply Israel with cutting-edge technologies, with cutting-edge weapons platforms, but the Israeli price, the price that Israel pays for those platforms, for that qualitative military edge in platforms, in technologies against its enemies, is that it's not allowed to actually defeat them. So, for instance, we saw this come into play for the first time in the Yom Kippur War in 1973, where Israel twice was deterred from attacking its enemies or defeating its enemies because of the United States, because of U.S. pressures. In relation to Iran, the idea had been that Israel didn't have to take cannot, must not take the lead in preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear know-how and military capabilities, because this was an American problem, that the United States would take care of it because Iran poses, and as it indeed does, a strategic threat not only to the existence of Israel, but also to U.S. power in the Middle East, to U.S. shipping, to U.S. forces in the Middle East, and that this was an American problem just as it was an Israeli problem. Don't forget that all of this is happening. The nuclear advances are being made at the same time that Iran's proxy armies in Yemen, in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Gaza, have seized territory and are using that territory to advance Iran's war aims against Israel and the Sunni Arab states. And don't forget that, Jordan is falling under Iran's sphere of influence as well, with King Abdallah trying to curry favor with the Iranians.
آنچه در مورد ما میگویند.